I stood in the doorway of the banquet hall, my old boots caked with road dust, the ache of 11 hours behind the wheel still pulsing in my shoulders. The air smelled of roasted chicken and cheap wine, and laughter spilled from the room like light under a door. My daughter's voice was in there somewhere, bright and sharp, cutting through the chatter. I'd driven all night, through rain-slicked highways and empty gas stations, just to make it to her 30th birthday party. My hands clutched a small gift box, wrapped in blue paper I'd picked out weeks ago, the edges frayed from my nervous grip. A young waiter, barely 20, stepped in front of me. His tie was crooked, his face apologetic but firm. "Sorry, sir," he said, "it's family only tonight." His words hit like a slap, though his tone was soft. I blinked, my mouth dry, searching for her face in the crowd beyond his shoulder. Family only. I wanted to laugh or maybe cry, but all I could do was stand there, the gift box heavy in my hands. "I'm her father," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. He shifted, uneasy, glancing at a clipboard. "I'm sorry, sir," he repeated. "You're not on the list." Not on the list. The words echoed in my head, sharp as broken glass. I saw her then, my Clara, laughing with a man I didn't know, her head thrown back, her dress catching the light. She hadn't seen me. Maybe she hadn't wanted to. I turned away, the gift box still in my hands, and walked back to my truck, the night air cold against my face. "Where are you watching from and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments." I remember the summer Clara turned 6, her hair a tangle of curls catching the sunlight as she ran through the backyard. The grass was warm under my bare feet, and the air smelled of honeysuckle and grilled hot dogs. My wife, Ellen, was still with us then, her laughter a soft melody as she sat out. Clara's birthday was always a big deal. Screens tied to the oak tree, a lopsided cake I'd baked myself, chocolate frosting smeared on her cheeks. She'd climb onto my lap, her small hands sticky, and whisper, "Daddy, you're my favorite." I'd laugh, pretending to wipe the frosting off her nose, but those words stuck to me like glue. Our house was small, a two-bedroom with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind. But it was ours. Every weekend, I'd tinker in the garage, fixing up old furniture while Clara played nearby, her toys scattered like stars across the concrete. I'd tell her stories about my own childhood, fishing with my dad, the way the lake smelled at dawn. She'd listen wide-eyed, her little feet swinging. Those were the days when time felt endless, when I could still scoop her up and carry her to bed, her head heavy on my shoulder. Even after Ellen got sick, we kept those birthdays alive. Clara was 10 when we lost her mom, and I tried to fill the gap. I wasn't perfect, burned dinners, forgotten laundry, but I showed up. Every school play, every scraped knee, I was there. I taught her to drive in the old truck, the same one I drove to her party years later, its engine coughing but loyal. We'd laugh when it stalled, her teenage scowl melting into a grin. Those moments felt like promises, like we'd always be a team. I'd sit up late sometimes after she'd gone to bed, the house too quiet without Ellen. The kitchen table was scratched from years of meals, and I'd trace the marks with my finger, thinking about how fast time was slipping. Clara grew up, got a job in the city, moved 3 states away. I was proud, even if the distance strung. She'd call sometimes, her voice rushed, promising to visit. I'd wait, keeping the porch light on, but the visits got shorter, the calls fewer. Still, I kept her room the same, her old posters, her stuffed bear on the shelf, just in case. When she invited me to her 30th, I didn't hesitate. The invitation came in a text, casual but clear. Dad, party, S at the Oak Room, 7 p.m., love you. I spent weeks planning the drive, picking out that gift. A locket with a picture of her and Ellen, something to hold close. I imagined her opening it, her smile like it used to be. The road was long, but I didn't mind. 11 hours was nothing for her. I stopped at gas stations, sipped bad coffee, and kept going, the radio playing old country songs that reminded me of home. I pictured her face when I'd walk in, the way she'd hug me, maybe call me her favorite again. The memory of those days kept me warm as I drove, the truck's heater barely working. I didn't know then that I'd be standing outside a banquet hall, turned away like a stranger. I didn't know that family only could mean something so cold. But in those miles, with the locket in my pocket and her old bear on the passenger seat, I was still her dad, still believing in the promises we'd made. The sting of the waiter's words lingered as I sat in my truck, the banquet hall's lights glowing through the rain-streaked windshield. Family, oh. NLY. I turned the gift box over in my hands, the blue paper damp from my grip. How am I not family? The question burned, but the answer was murkier, built from years of small, quiet shifts I hadn't wanted to see. Clara had always been my anchor, even when the world felt unsteady. After Ellen died, we leaned on each other, her with her teenage defiance, me with my clumsy attempts at parenting. But as she grew older, something changed. It wasn't one moment, not a fight or a slammed door, but a slow drift. She'd call less, her voice distracted when she did. I'd ask about her life in the city, and she'd say, "It's fine, Dad, just busy." I told myself it was normal. Kids grow up, move on. But I missed her laugh, the way she'd roll her eyes at my bad jokes. The first real crack came a few years back at Thanksgiving. I'd driven up to her new apartment, a sleek place with glass walls and no yard. She'd invited friends, not just me, and I felt like a guest in her world. Her boyfriend, Mark, was there, polished, confident, with a handshake too firm. He talked over me, laughed at my old truck, called it a relic. Clara didn't correct him. She just smiled, her eyes flicking away when I tried to catch them. I left early that night. The leftovers she'd packed me cold in my hands. Then there were the missed visits. I'd planned to see her, clear my schedule, but she'd text last minute. Sorry, Dad, work's crazy. Can we reschedule? I'd say sure, no problem, but each time felt like a pebble in my shoe. I kept her birthday gift from last year unopened on my dresser, a book of poetry she used to love. She never came to pick it up. I started to wonder if I was holding onto something she'd let go of. The invitation to her 30th felt like a bridge back. I clung to it, planned every detail, even polished the locket until it gleamed. The drive was long, but I didn't care. I stopped at a diner halfway, the kind with sticky tables and waitresses who called me hun. I ate pancakes, thought of Clara's 6th birthday, how she'd begged for extra syrup. The memory kept me going, even as the rain poured harder and my back ached. When I reached the Oak Room, I was early. I sat in the parking lot, watching families arrive, kids in bright dresses, men in suits, women carrying gift bags. I felt out of place in my flannel and jeans, but I didn't mind. I was there for her. I walked to the entrance, the locket in my pocket, the gift box in my hands. The hall was loud, alive, the kind of place Clara loved now. I could hear her voice, bright as ever, and my heart lifted. Then the waiter stopped me. Sorry, sir, it's family only. I stood there dumbstruck as he checked his clipboard. I'm her father, I said again, softer, like saying it louder would make it true. He shrugged, almost sad, and pointed to the list. Your name's not here. I looked past him, saw Clara laughing with Mark, her friends, people I didn't know. She hadn't seen me, hadn't looked for me. The box felt heavier, the locket cold against my thigh. I wanted to push past, to call her name, but my feet wouldn't move. She didn't put me on the list. The truth settled like dust in my chest. I turned back to the truck, the rain soaking my jacket. I didn't open the gift box, didn't look at the locket. I just sat there, the engine off, listening to the rain and the faint hum of her party, wondering when I'd stopped being family. The rain kept falling as I sat in the truck, the banquet hall's lights blurring through the wet windshield. I didn't start the engine. I just held the gift box, its edges soft from the damp, and let my mind wander back, picking at memories like old scars. When did I lose her? The question wasn't new, but it hurt more now, sharp and raw in the dark. I thought of the years after Ellen died, how I'd poured everything into Clara. I was a mechanic then, hands always stained with grease, working long shifts to keep us afloat. I'd come home late, the house quiet, and find Clara asleep at the kitchen table, her homework spread out, a half-eaten sandwich nearby. I'd carry her to bed, her weight light in my arms, and promise myself I'd do better tomorrow. I gave up nights at the bar with the guys, skipped fishing trips, saved every penny for her school clothes, her braces, her dreams. It wasn't enough, maybe, but it was all I had. There was a day, I think she was 15, when she asked about college. We were in the garage, me under an old Ford, her sitting cross-legged on the floor, twisting a wrench like I'd taught her. She wanted to study art, maybe in the city. I remember the pride in my chest, mixed with fear. College was expensive, and I was just a small-town guy with a toolbox. But I smiled, said, "We'll make it work, kid." I took extra shifts, fixed cars on weekends, even sold my dad's old fishing rods. She got into a good school, and I drove her there, the truck packed with her things, her bear on the dashboard. She hugged me tight before I left, her eyes wet. I ought, that was enough. But there were moments I missed, too. I wasn't perfect. I'd forget her art shows sometimes, too tired from work to drive the 2 hours. I'd call instead, leave voicemails she didn't always answer. "Sorry, Dad, I was busy," she'd say later, and I'd laugh it off, but it strung. I'd see her posts online, smiling with friends at places I didn't recognize, and feel like I was watching her life through a window. I told myself it was just growing up, but deep down, I wondered if I'd failed her somehow. I thought of the locket in my pocket, the one I'd spent weeks choosing. It was simple, silver, with a photo of her and Ellen from that summer she turned 6. I'd found the picture in an old album, Clara's curls wild, Ellen's smile soft. I wanted her to remember who we were. I'd driven 11 hours through storms and empty roads to give it to her. I'd imagined her opening it, her eyes lighting up like they used to. Instead, I was here outside, the waiter's words echoing. Not on the list. I felt shame, hot and heavy, like I'd been caught somewhere I didn't belong. Was it me? Did I push her away? I remembered a call from last year, her voice rushed. "Dad, I'm fine, just swamped with work. Mark's helping me plan the party. You'll come, right?" I'd said yes, of course, but she hadn't mentioned a list, hadn't warned me. I wondered if Mark had made the list, if he'd decided who counted as family. Or maybe Clara had, and that thought hurt worse. I saw her laughing inside, surrounded by people who weren't me, and I felt small, like the man who'd raised her didn't matter anymore. The truck smelled of old leather and coffee, and I leaned back, the seat creaking under me. The gift box sat on the passenger seat next to her bear. I didn't open it. I just stared out at the rain, the banquet hall's lights fading as my eyes burned. I'd given her everything, every late night, every missed chance, every dollar I had. And now I was outside, holding a gift she might never see, wondering where I'd gone wrong. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, tapping softly on the truck's roof as I sat there, the gift box untouched beside me. The banquet hall's lights still glowed, but the laughter inside felt farther away now, like a song I couldn't quite hear. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried since Ellen's funeral, but my chest was tight, and my hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. I'm her father, I kept thinking, but the words felt hollow, like they didn't carry the weight they used to. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just tired. Tired of chasing, tired of hoping, tired of being left outside. I didn't drive away, not at first. I sat there, staring at the locket in my hand, its silver catching the dim streetlight. I'd spent hours picking it out, imagining Clara's face when she saw it. Now it felt like a relic of someone else's life. I thought about marching back in, demanding to see her, but what would I say? Why didn't you put me on the list? The question felt too big, too raw, like it would crack something open I wasn't ready to face. Instead, I let my mind settle, let the hurt sink in, and something quiet started to grow inside me. A decision, small but steady. I wasn't going to beg, not for her attention, not for a place at her table. I'd spent years giving her everything, my time, my heart, my last dime, and maybe that was enough. Maybe I didn't need to prove I was her father anymore. I thought about the house, the one I'd kept for her with her room untouched, her bear on the shelf. I'd been holding onto it like a promise she'd come back. But sitting there, in the cold cab of my truck, I realized something. I didn't have to keep waiting. I started the engine, the familiar rumble shaking the seat. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I wasn't staying here, outside her world, clutching a gift she might not want. I drove slowly out of the parking lot, the banquet hall shrinking in my rearview mirror. The locket was still in my hand, and I slipped it into my pocket, not ready to let it go, but not ready to give it away either. I'm done chasing, I thought, and the words felt like a door closing, soft but final. I stopped at a gas station a few miles down the road, the neon sign flickering in the dark. The clerk was an older woman, her hair grey like mine, her smile kind as she rang up my coffee. "You look like you've had a long night," she said, and I just nodded, too worn to explain. I sat in the truck again, sipping the coffee, its bitterness sharp on my tongue. I thought about the years I'd spent keeping Clara's world steady, every sacrifice, every missed moment of my own. I'd given her all I had, but I couldn't make her see me. Not anymore. The decision wasn't loud or dramatic. It was just there, solid as the road under my thumb. I'd go home, but not to wait for her. I'd live my life. Maybe fix up the house, maybe sell it, maybe take a trip somewhere I'd never been. I'd been Clara's dad for so long. I'd forgotten how to be anything else. But now, in the quiet of that gas station lot, I felt something shift. I was still her father, but I didn't have to beg to be family. I could choose myself too. The highway stretched dark and empty as I drove home, the truck's headlights cutting through the night. The locket stayed in my pocket, the gift box on the seat beside me, Clara's bear tucked against it. I didn't play the radio. The hum of the engine and the soft patter of rain were enough, grounding me as I let that quiet decision settle deeper. I wasn't going to chase her anymore. Not her love, not her time, not her approval. I'd spent too many years waiting for her to see me, and I was done. When I got home, the house was cold, the kind of stillness that only comes after midnight. The porch light was still on like always, but I flicked it off as I stepped inside. The kitchen table sat under a thin layer of dust, and I ran my finger across it, leaving a clean streak. I didn't go to Clara's room, didn't look at her posters or her bear's empty spot on the shelf. Instead, I made coffee, the old machine gurgling like it was complaining, and sat in the dark, thinking. The next morning I started small. I cleaned the garage, sorting through years of junk, rusted tools, broken chairs, boxes of Ellen's things I'd never opened. I found an old photo of Clara and me, taken at a county fair when she was 8. She was holding a cotton candy bigger than her head, her smile all teeth, my arm around her. I didn't linger on it, just set it aside. I called a realtor that afternoon, asked about selling the house. Not right away, I said, just curious. She asked what I wanted to do next, and I didn't have an answer, but the question felt good, like a door cracking open. I stopped answering Clara's texts right away. They came sporadically, as always, short, vague messages about her job, her life. "Hope you're good, Dad," she'd write, and I'd stare at the words, wondering if she meant them. I'd reply, but not instantly, not eagerly. "Good here," I'd say, keeping it short. I didn't ask when she'd visit. I didn't mention the party. I started fixing up the truck too, replacing the belts, patching the seats. It felt good to work with my hands again, to focus on something I could control. Weeks passed, and I noticed how quiet my days had become. Not lonely, just different. I'd walk to the diner down the road, the one with the red stools and the jukebox that hadn't worked in years. The waitress, Marge, knew my order: black coffee, 2 eggs, toast. She'd ask about my day, and I'd tell her about the house, the truck, the fishing trip I was thinking about taking. "You deserve it," she'd say, and I started to believe her. Clara called once, her voice surprised when I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Hey, Dad, just checking in, you okay?" I listened to it twice, my thumb hovering over the call button. But I didn't call back, not yet. I wasn't punishing her. I was just giving myself space, letting myself breathe. I took the locket out one night, opened it, and looked at the photo inside. Clara and Ellen frozen in that summer light. I closed it gently, set it in a drawer. It wasn't about forgetting her. It was about remembering me. People noticed the change, though they didn't understand it. Marge commented on my new jacket, said I looked lighter. The realtor called back, said the market was good if I decided to sell. I started going to the community center, fixing things for folks. Leaky faucets, wobbly tables. They'd offer me coffee, tell me stories, and I'd listen, feeling like I was part of something again. I was Clara's dad in those moments, just Tom, the guy with the toolbox, and that felt like enough. The weeks turned into months, and the house felt less like a museum to Clara's childhood. I'd sold a few things, old furniture, some tools I didn't need, and the garage looked cleaner, more like a workspace than a storage unit for memories. I hadn't heard from Clara in a while, just a text here and there, always short, always rushed. I'd respond, but I kept my distance, not out of anger, but because I was building something new, something that didn't hinge on her. The locket stayed in the drawer, the gift box on a shelf in the closet, untouched but not forgotten. Then one Sunday morning my phone rang. Clara's name lit up the screen and I paused, coffee mug halfway to my mouth. The kitchen smelled of toast, the window open to let in the cool fall air. I let it ring twice more before answering. "Dad," she said, her voice bright but edged with something else. "Guilt, maybe. I haven't heard from you. You okay?" I leaned against the counter, the wood cool under my hand. "I'm good," I said, keeping it light. "Just been busy." She hesitated, then launched into stories about her job, Mark, a trip they were planning. She didn't mention the party, and I didn't bring it up. A week later, I showed up. I was in the garage, sanding down. Old chair when I heard tires on the gravel. She stepped out of a sleek car, Mark behind her, his sunglasses catching the sun. She hugged me, quick and tight, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar. "You look good, Dad," she said, glancing around. "The house looks different." I nodded, wiping sawdust from my hands. "Been cleaning up," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They stayed for coffee, sitting at the kitchen table like strangers. Mark talked too much about his promotion, their new apartment. Clara was quieter, her fingers tracing the scratches on the table. "You didn't call me back much," she said when Mark stepped outside to take a call. I shrugged, sipping my coffee. "Been busy," I said again, and she frowned, like she wanted more but didn't know how to ask. I didn't offer anything else. "I'm not begging you to see me," I thought. and the silence between us felt heavy but honest. She tried again a few weeks later, another call, then a letter, handwritten, which surprised me. "Dad, I miss you," she wrote. "I'm sorry I've been distant. Can we talk?" I read it at the kitchen table, the paper crinkling under my fingers. Part of me wanted to call her, to drive back to her city, to hand her the locket and pretend nothing had changed. But another part, the one that had grown stronger in the quiet months, held firm. I wrote back, short but kind. "Glad you're doing well, Clara. I'm here when you're ready." I mailed it and felt lighter, like I'd set something down. Mark called once, his voice smooth, asking why I was pulling away. "You're her dad," he said, like it was a role I needed reminding of. I listened, said little, and hung up. They wanted me back on their terms, at their parties, in their world. But I wasn't the man standing outside the banquet hall anymore, clutching a gift box, hoping for a glance. I was Tom, with a life I was building piece by piece. Marge at the diner noticed it, said I carried myself taller. I started fishing again, early mornings at the lake, the water still and cold. I fixed up the house, painted the porch, even thought about that trip I'd mentioned. A drive out west, maybe, where the sky felt bigger. Clara's texts kept coming, softer now, asking to visit. I didn't say no, but I didn't rush to say yes. I was done chasing, done proving I belonged. If she wanted to be family, she'd have to meet me halfway. The months kept turning, and the house felt like mine again, not just a keeper of Clara's past. I'd painted the walls a soft grey, sold the old couch, and put up shelves for books I'd always meant to read. The kitchen table was clean now, no dust, just a stack of fishing magazines and a mug I left out. Clara's room was still there, but I'd boxed up her posters, folded her old clothes for donation. The bear stayed on the shelf, a quiet nod to what was, but I didn't linger on it. The locket was still in the drawer, its silver duller now, like it was waiting for a moment that might never come. I started spending more time at the lake, rod in hand, the water reflecting the sky's slow shift from pink to gold. I'd sit on the shore, the air sharp with pine, and think about the years I'd spent holding onto Clara's childhood, waiting for her to come back. I didn't wait anymore. I'd drive to the diner, chat with Marge, fix a neighbor's gate, or just sit on my porch, listening to the wind rattle the chimes Ellen had hung years ago. I was 62, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for me. Clara came by again, unannounced, on a crisp fall afternoon. I was in the yard raking leaves, the air smelling of earth and smoke. She stepped out of her car alone this time, no Mark, her hair pulled back, her face softer than I remembered. She hugged me longer than before, and I felt her tremble just a little. I made coffee, and we sat at the table, the silence between us not heavy but careful. like we were both feeling our way. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said finally, her voice small, "for the party, for everything. I didn't know what to say." I'd replayed that night so many times, the waiter, the clipboard, the rain, but hearing her say it made it real again. "Why wasn't I on the list?" I asked, quieter than I meant. She looked down, her fingers twisting the mug. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "Mark made the list, and I didn't check. I messed up." Her eyes were wet, but I didn't reach for her hand. I just listened. She talked for a while about her life, her job, how fast everything moved in the city. She said she missed me, missed the way things used to be. I nodded, sipping my coffee, letting her words settle. I wanted to believe her, but I'd learned something in those months alone. Her apology didn't erase the hurt, and my love didn't mean I had to open the door wide again. "I'm glad you're here," I said, and I meant it, but I didn't say more. She left after an hour, promising to come back soon. I watched her car disappear down the road, the leaves swirling behind her. I didn't know if she'd keep that promise, but I didn't feel the old ache to hold her to it. I went back to raking, the rhythm steady, the pile growing. That night, I took the locket out, looked at the photo one last time, Clara and Ellen smiling in that summer light. I closed it, set it in a small wooden box with Ellen's wedding ring, and put it on the shelf next to the bear. Not hidden, not gone, just resting. The next morning I drove to the lake, the air cold, the sky clear. I cast my line, watched the water ripple, and felt a quiet peace settle in my bones. I wasn't waiting for Clara anymore, wasn't waiting for anyone. I was just here, living, breathing, whole. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and tap one of the stories on the left or right.